Alright, first off, we're going to have to prepare our data to be used in our SQL database. And to do that, because the files are so large, we're going to have to use Python in the Spider IDE. And with this code, what it'll do is it'll take all the approximately 67,000 data files, which are in folders, subfolders, 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 and we'll kind of iterate through those and create one uh, data set for each variable type. So, for example, each individual will have multiple time variables for like heart rate, and it'll go through and find all the ones with heart rate, and we'll concatenate those all into one by each participant, and so on and so forth for like the IBI and the temperature, etc., etc. And like I said, we could do this manually, but it would be such an arduous process and would take an extremely long time to do. So we'll just put them all together using this, and then what we'll have to do is we'll have to chunk some of the larger files afterwards, and then it'll be ready for importation to our SQL data file. Because this is a fairly long process, we'll go ahead and fast forward. And now that we're done with concatenating all the different CSV files, what we'll do is now we'll use Python to chunk some of the data into smaller chunks so that we can upload them into our SQL database. And again, we have some prepared code, so we don't have to type it all in manually. And then this also process takes a little bit, so I'll also fast forward through this process as well, because again, it's not quite as important as the SQL database stuff. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is create our schema, and then you can come in here and name it whatever you want. And we'll just name it Classroom Engagement DB1. So first thing we have to do is once it's created is tell it to use this database. And we have it. And then this next thing, it's not necessarily for all of your database inputs, but because some of these are fairly large, we're going to have to change some of the global settings so it doesn't max out. And again, this is similar because we don't want things maxing out and everything is working appropriately. So the next thing we have to do is actually create our tables. And I already have a script for that. So let's make it a little bit cleaner here. And usually I do this one by one so that I don't miss anything, and that's created. Here's our EDA table, and that was created. Then our temp table, BVP table, IBI table, classroom environment, class table, student survey, here's our teacher table, and our teacher survey. We actually have to go through and load our data sets. Again, we'll just make this a little bit cleaner. Okay, and we did have some issues mainly with the types of files, so we're going to have to do some altering of our tables. And really we just have to change some of the data types and what we're using as references when we go to join some of these tables. Otherwise we'll have some ongoing issues. Alright, we're going to do just a little bit of debugging here. Since we had a little bit of an issue with some of these, we'll just see if we can't figure out the issue. And so we see part of the issue is some of the numbers in one table don't match. So we're just going to have to adjust by inserting. And we have those properly done. So we go back to the student. EDA. Let's see, which one was this? Alter EDA. It was this one right here. Oh, it's duplicate. Okay, so we already have that. Then we'll see if this works now. And it did. So we're going to have to step back and punt here since we're having some issues. So we'll step back and punt and then just do it in a command prompt here and see if that fixes the issue. So as expected, we had already created the joins before. Alright. Name already done, okay. And then we're just going to update this with our new schema. Assigned. And then we're going to do a little bit of debugging. As you can see, we have actually some missing data, so we're going to have to deal with that. And so we're going to have to We're going to have to ignore things that are, and then we're going to have to retry to add the foreign key by altering the table here. And that looked like it worked. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and alter our coding document, reflect these. Now we just need to check and make sure that we've debugged everything. I have a feeling we've probably missed something here. Let's see. We took care of that. Temperature. And we're going to do this in the prompt just because it will be a little bit quicker with this large data set. Alright, so now that we've done our debugging, it looks like everything should be. Now let's update our code file. And then I think there was one more that we had to debug. Then we're going to create our index. We'll finally be able to create the final foreign key. Okay. So it looks like we're having some issues with our ID. Fix that. And it looks like we are now fully fixed. Update our file. Now we will do some selections. Alright, and this is just going to look for the average indoor temperature. And it looks like we have the average indoor temperature of our classroom. And this is going to look for the min, max, and average heart rate of the participants by ID. And there we have it. And it looks like it is working. And then we're going to look for students who has an above average heart rate. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a procedure here, and then we're going to call it get student heart rate. exist. And we do indeed have an above average. All right. That doesn't quite make sense. So what we have is the timestamp was swapped improperly. And so what we have to do is we have to truncate the table. Then we're going to have to reload the heart rate with the timestamp in the proper position. And then we're going to be able to run things appropriately. Okay, we just had a little bit of a syntax error that we had to correct. So let's go ahead and update file for our truncate. All right. Now let's see if we can go about doing the heart rate and IBI. And this will show min max heart rate as well as min max for IBI. Sorry for IBI, and that looks like it was created correctly. And then we're just going to select the ID, gender, age, min max heart rate, min max IBI. And then we're going to select our student. Then we're going to do a left join with a heart rate and IBI summary. And then we're going to see if this works appropriately. Okay, so I'd actually not run this that one. So now that we have done our left join, it appears to work properly. And then of course we have some nulls and stuff that we could inspect if we so desired. Okay, and for some of the final stuff, we're going to, of course, start a new query, so it's nice and clean. All right, so we started a new tab, and we're going to do a couple final queries, and then we'll be done. And this one looks at comparing each participant's heart rate to the overall average. And so we're going to select out from our heart rate tab, do a join, and then we'll see what we get out. And as you can see, it worked well. And then we have our participant IDs, our average heart rates, and then the overall average for the different classes, so we can compare them. Next, we're going to look at heart rate variability per participants. And this is going to essentially look at the average heart rate, and then we're going to do as a variability, and then we're going to have to put it in our descending order. And then we'll run this and see if it works. And of course, it appears to have worked well. And then we have our participants in descending heart rate variability order. So we have our average heart rates here, and then we have our heart rate variability over here. And that seems to have worked out nicely. And then finally, we'll look at our average heart rate per minute. And for this, we'll have to convert the timestamps. Of course, we're using the average heart rate, and then we'll group and order by, and we'll see if that works. And it did indeed work. So we have our participant AB here, the minute blocks here, and then our average heart rate here. And then you can see it's essentially like a time sequence, and you can go down and see the different participant IDs or blocks or average heart rate. So it appears to have all worked fairly well. And so you can do a lot more with this data in different queries that you can do. This just kind of shows off some of the things that you can do with it. All right, now that we've created all our tables, created all our data, we've selected our database, we can also create an ERD. And for that, you go to Database, Reverse Engineer, make sure it's set up for your local connection or whatever connection is appropriate. Make sure everything's checked, and then we're going to click on our correct database. Just going to go through and then execute. And then it creates a nice little ERD. Now you will have to many times change the schema a little bit just because they're not always connected. But if there is any connections, it will automatically put them one to many, many to one, etc. And then what you can always do is just go over here and click on whatever you need. Then you click on your first one, click on the next one, and it'll automatically create a join, and then you just continue to do that for whatever you need, and then you can get to your final output, whatever it looks like, whatever you need. And so you can make whatever connections that you need to, and then adjust everything to where it needs to be to get a better visual overlay so it's not too crowded. So it's a little bit tougher than working with some of the others that I've worked with. Just because you can't just click and draw, you have to click here, type, and then click on the two. And it's really hard to kind of undo the issue. But it saves a lot of time and creates a lot of your list for you. So that's a positive. So sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes you just have to do a lot of extra work afterwards. But like I said, in the end, it'll probably save you a lot of time. But again, that's how you create an ERD with using the MySQL Workbench. And thank you for watching.